evening, everybody, and how are we all doing today? Is Sunday, the 13th of April, 2025. Isn't this month just flying by? It feels like we only just walked into April, and now it's the 13th. 10 days to my birthday, though, so something to look forward to. How are we all doing? Today, we are going to be talking about rainwater harvesting. This is a subject that I could talk for hours about and get on a proper rant. We'll probably get into that in just a moment. And I've just realized that I could have actually done a rant about this for the rant of the week. Anyway, we'll save that for another time. Now, I'm going to go through the comments and see if anybody is actually out there. But when we get started, while I go through these comments, write down in the comments how many water butts you think I have. There's a reason that my friend of mine calls me the Butt King. How many water butts do you think I have? Rob's Allotment Gardening is there saying, good evening, everyone. Hope you are all okay. Hope you are well too, my friend. We've got Nigel from the Muddy Boots Allotment channel saying, evening all. Weather dropped a bit cooler today and a few spots of rain. Turbo Stream is there saying, good evening, veg podcasters. Good evening to you, Turbo Stream. Hargrave Gas is there. Evening all. Hope you've had a great week. We finally got some rain here in Suffolk about an hour ago. Oh, ain't you lucky? Ain't you lucky? Adrian is there saying hello to all. Good evening to you. Scott from Seed to Table Plot 13. Evening all. Good evening to you. Anna Jones, evening gardeners. Good evening to you. Digwell says an easy one for you this week. Good evening all. I wonder what language that is in. I think I can pronounce it quite well as well. Stuart Jackson is there. Evening, Richard and the Veg Army. Hope you are all great. Good evening to you. Richard Golden says happy 600 mate. Thank you very much. 600 episodes of the Veg Growl podcast went live on Monday night, as I remember. Rebecca is there saying good evening all. Good evening to you. Jenny is there. Hello, everyone. Hope you are all well. Good evening to you. Jenny's gone in with 16. And how many water butts do I have? Anna has guessed 6. Stuart Jackson says, I think you have 14. Kate says, good evening, Veg Army. Good evening to you. Digwell says, well, Richard, you are a pain in the butt. Oh, yes, I'm hoping we're going to get lots of butt jokes in tonight anyway. Scott says 20. What else have we got? Gary has joined, says evening all. Good evening to you. Andrew is there. Hey there, everyone. Good evening to you. Turbo Stream. We had the same rain as Muddy Boots. We could have had done with some more. Okay, well, I'll get into that in just a moment. Stuart says we have about a dozen raindrops today. Didn't make me stop gardening, though. Indeed. So, I asked you, how many water butts do I have in my garden? Well, the answer to that is actually, and somebody guessed it already, 16 water butts. I'm just counting them in my head again, just to make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I'm going to have to add some more to that. 16 water butts, various sizes to be fair, but from the sort of 100-litre slim lines right up to a big 300-litre water butt. And for me, I think this is the important thing about rainwater harvesting. It is incredibly important. Water to me is an incredibly valuable resource, and it's one that we can actually get for free. It falls from the sky and it lands in our garden and onto our rooftops, and we can use it to water our gardens. For me, I think it's crazy that we pump perfectly good fresh drinking water to a house and just use it to flush the toilet with. I think rainwater is also better for our plants. So my next question to you, put your hand up if you have at least one water butt. Let me know. With regards to everyone's talking about rain, and in fact, Scott says rain for a good 40 minutes in Cambridge. It was well needed. We have not had any rain here still. It certainly turned a bit cooler. We've had a lot of wind. Wind has been a real problem lately, but we've had a lot of wind. We've had a lot of sunshine, but no rain. It did get a bit cooler today, and I thought just now it was about to rain, but at the moment it hasn't yet. But luckily some people have. Jenny says, what's my prize? Don't have a prize for you today. The prize is you get to listen to me talk about butts. Chili Kate's joined. Hey, Richard. Hi, everyone. Just potting up chilies while we listen. Excellent stuff. Digwell says, I just posted my rainwater harvesting pic on the Facebook group. I can't get that now, but yeah. Turbo Stream says, I have 2 butts, blue barrel, and recently acquired a second barrel. Just need to work out where to site the new barrel. Excellent, excellent. Jenny says, gutted next door has the guttering downpipe. I have a butt on my porch roof. I have 3 butts to connect to the plot. Excellent. Stuart Jackson says, I have 4 water butts, but loads of buckets to catch more water. And Digwell says, no rain in the Shire. And Anna also says, no rain still in the northeast. We could do with a spot of rain. Now, one of the reasons that I have 16 water butts is that over the years, I found that that has given me enough rainwater that we've collected throughout the winter months to last an entire season. And I try and attach as many as I possibly can to downpipes on my sheds. Every single shed I have in the garden will have guttering attached and a downpipe into a water butt. That for me is a big thing, a very important thing as well. Over on Instagram, Allotted Chef 74, that's Nathan, if I'm not mistaken, has joined. Yeah, for me, it's important that we collect as much rainwater. So try and every single shed will have a gutter attached and a downpipe into a water butt. These 16 water butts that I have are hidden as much as I possibly could. So I got 4 that are hidden at the top of my garden behind a shed that nobody can really see. The thing is, and I've said this about compost bins lately, I do think these plastic water butts can be a little ugly looking, especially when you've got so many. So I find by putting them in hidden places, and then I try and daisy chain them, so when one water butt fills up, it overfills into the next one, and so on. I think they can look a bit ugly, but by daisy chaining them, we actually get maximum potential out of all the water butts. Andrew says, we still don't have mains water in my village, but I do have a 3 meter deep, 2 meter wide rainwater tank that we use in the house and water the garden. 2 butts and a 11,000 litre tank. That's amazing. And no piped water. That is absolutely brilliant as well. Rob says they had 6 drops today, just 6 drops. Were you counting them? And Nigel says, I have a 150 litre butt in the garden, 4 times blue barrels, around 1,000 litre IBC on the allotment. So IBC, so there's something you often see on an allotment. They're those big plastic containers, for those that don't know. They stand for industrial bulk containers. Allotmenteers often use them. Excuse me, I've got a bit of wind there. Often use them for catching rainwater because of their size. We're not allowed them on my allotment, so I can't have one there. I would love one, but we're not allowed them. But 1,000 litre tank, I mean, that's the equivalent to about 5 large water butts. Turbo Stream, I would have a butt at home, but my downpipe is connected to the bathroom waste. Not ideal for watering plants. Not at all. But if you've got a shed or something, use that. Andrew says, not 11,000, 1 times 1,000. Sorry, 1,000 litre. It sounds like the IBC tank, just like Nigel was saying. But yeah, trying to maximize as many water butts as we possibly can, trying to daisy chain them so that they fill up each other as they get more and more full is a very efficient way of catching as much rainwater. But I do have some water butts myself personally that are not attached to downpipes. And that's because I've moved them into locations that they can fit in as opposed to making it better for myself. And to fill these up, sometimes actually just standing there, they catch quite a bit of water just standing there. And when it rains, they catch a lot of water. But what I also do, when my water butts are full or we're expecting rain, I pump water out of my water butts that are attached to a drain pipe. I pump that into these other water butts, meaning in theory, that my rainwater harvesting can catch as much rainwater as possible, can catch a lot of rainwater. That's the theory. That's the theory indeed. I also, if we're expecting rain, and I've done that tonight because we are expecting rain. I don't know if it's going to come though. I put a load of buckets out in order to try and catch as much rainwater as possible, and I've even got a a watering can, sorry, that is designed to catch rainwater at the same time. Turbo Stream says in 2023, I had to dismantle my butts on the allotment as my shed side needed to be repaired just where they were. That was a dry, hot summer too. LOL. I bet it was. I bet it was. Digwa says bathwater is great for watering plants. Yep, it is. It is. Now, this is actually a point that I think it's only right that I come across with, because I do think bathwater is great for watering plants, but rainwater is better. Especially when it comes to vegetables. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of comments about this, but what I like personally to do, if I have to resort to bathwater because my rainwater butts are running low, what I will do is try and use the rainwater for watering my plants, but save the bathwater for watering my non-edible plants, or use it for flushing the toilet as well. That way I keep my rainwater butts or my rainwater for my edible plants. Now, there's going to be a lot of debate, I'm sure, that is bathwater any worse than horse manure, for example, which is a valid point, but it's more about the chemicals for me. Jenny says, I grow training plants and herbs on my water butts in my last house. That's not a bad idea, actually. That might be something we have to try and think about to do to hide the water butts, make them look a little bit better. Stuart Jackson says, I did see Aldi had water butts on offer this week. Interesting. I haven't been to Aldi for a while, so I did not know that. Turbo Stream says that home garden is for flowers, shrubs, so doesn't need / get watered. Fair enough. Not had a bath in years, Digross says Turbo Stream. Jenny says, I'm getting a new water butt soon to take the water from our ice bath. I won't waste the water. You're getting an ice bath. That's lovely. I love an ice bath. Nigel says, water butts are best daisy chained at a low level or link them with a siphon pipe. This helps keep the level even in all barrels. Now, this is actually a good debate, actually, because when I've always put daisy chained my water butts at the top so that when one fills up, it then overfills into the next. But there is a train of thought that Nigel was alluding to, is that you pipe them in at the bottom so that all your water butts fill up to the same level. So let's say you've got 4 in a daisy chain, they will all be quarter full, half full, and so on. There is a lot of the pros and cons for either way. For me, I've always done them at the top so that they overfill into the other. I've always felt if they are attached at the bottom, if you get a leak on one water butt, you're going to lose all your water. That for me is why I daisy chain them at the top. But that's not to say it's the correct or wrong way to do it. It's just a different way of doing it. We got no downpipe, says Rob. It's in the neighbour's garden. A couple of you are having this problem, aren't you? It's not something I've came across myself, but I find that quite interesting. However, do you have sheds in your garden that you can use instead? I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do. Nicholas says, I have 11 LBC tanks that need situated in various locations and also have some traditional water butts too. 11, that's a lot of water. A lot of water. That'll keep your garden going for quite a while. Digwell says rainwater is just as polluted as bathwater, maybe worse. Interesting. I mean, Digwell worked for the water board for a while, so he probably knows more on this particular subject than any of us. But yeah, I can see it being polluted. I can completely see it being polluted. I don't know what it is, this sort of mental barrier I have. Not so much I'm against using bath water, it's just not what I would prefer to do. Jenny says, growing on your water butt could be a mission for next week. I used an old felt grow bag, but you could make a wooden frame, etc., as well. That's an idea. That's an idea for a mission. If you want to, don't forget, I will need a mission to do over this next week. Bit of a story about the mission, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. Over on Instagram, the Chambers Farm Flowers and the Granary Garden has joined. Welcome along. Lovely to see you. We're talking about rainwater harvesting tonight. Something very important to me because I think we need to catch as much rainwater as we possibly can in order to keep our plants hydrated. Jenny says you could use pond plants to keep and filter your water. Many can remove toxins, etc. That's not something I've looked into, actually, and not something I have looked into, but I'd agree it could work. Nicholas has got to put guttering in downpipes on the new chicken roofs and compost area. Actually, no. Again, this is something I think is quite important. Every single structure in a garden, even my wood store, we have fitted guttering and drain pipes to fill up another water butt. Every single structure fills up a water butt. The only one that doesn't is my barbecue, because I think that would probably melt if it had plastic on the back of it. Not only that, it goes into our neighbours a bit, so couldn't really be done. But every single structure, water butt, woodshed, chicken run, greenhouse, they all catch water. Rooftop of the house, of course, that's all used to catch as much rainwater as I possibly can. Stuart says, should you always cover your water butts, or are they better left in the open? Thanks, team. I would say always cover them. That way, it's less likely that a cat or mouse or rat is going to fall into them and drown. So I would say cover them. It also prevents sun or from warming up the water and it escaping as steam. It keeps the rainwater in the water butt a bit more. That would be my thoughts on it. But again, what does everybody else think? Anna says, I catch rainwater in a wheelbarrow, and if our pond gets very high, I use pond water only on trees and shrubs. Again, there's nothing wrong with using pond water. We absolutely need to use, if it gets high, we need to, water is a valuable resource. We need to try and hold on to it as much as we possibly can. Over on Instagram, Dahlia679 has joined. Welcome along. Turbo Extreme says, my blue barrel is full of water, boatman. Not sure how they got in there. Well, water boatmen are an insect. I believe, and I'm not going to suggest that you go and do this, of course. I believe that if you have goldfish in your water butt, it will help reduce the amount of insects, particularly mosquitoes, actually, because they will likely eat them. Now, I'm not saying go and do that. I'm not recommending it at all. I did try putting fish in one of my water butts once, but I don't think it's a very big room for them to really be in. But it's an idea. It's certainly an idea. Nicholas says, cover with a fine mesh at very least to keep the mozzies out and leaves. Nicholas says, yeah, I agree. I agree. Jenny says, if there are any open, please have a floating log or similar so birds, insects, etc. can climb in and out. Yeah. And please don't use water butt nets, as birds can easily get caught on them. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. I think, again, birds will probably come along and drink from your water butt anyway, because it's a good source of water if they are open. But personally, I prefer them to be closed. Oh, lovely, lovely, lovely. Digwell says, so okay to put water with fresh fish poo on in the plants, LOL. So here's the thing. I used to keep goldfish in a fish tank indoors, and I used to use that water from the fish tank to actually, when I cleaned out the fish tank, that was the old water I would use as to water my plants. But because fish poop is full of nitrogen, that water was actually a really good fertilizer at the same time. So yeah, fish poo is great on the plants. I know what you're going to say. It comes back to that bathwater thing. Does anybody else, let's have a show of hands on that subject. Anybody else use bath water to water their plants? Digwell says PFAS, poly and perfluorocarbon substances are in rainwater almost beyond safety levels in some circumstances, plus nitrogen compounds, etc. So not so much lead these days found in rainwater. Yeah, again, this is a weird one because I wouldn't dream of drinking rainwater out my water butt, but I wouldn't have a problem with drinking water out my tap. Yet I wouldn't go the other way around. It's weird, isn't it? A weird way of listing things that I'm happy to do and not happy to do. Turbo Stream says it used as a feed for the two main butts, but it does get used as a dip tank when the butts run dry. Talking about your ILBC, I'm guessing there. Digwa says, I had a water butt net, but it leaked. Very clever there. Nicholas says, have in the past, but only a shower now. I'm talking about the bath. Yeah. Anybody else? Digwell says, I used to siphon my bath water to the butt in my old house. Interesting. Scott says, I couldn't use my bath water. I use lots of bath salts and bubble bath in mine. I use a lot of bubble bath in mine as well. That's why another reason I wouldn't want to use bath water. But I wouldn't have a problem with using bath water on my grass, that being said. Keep the grass nice and green by using bath water. What I really want, and it must exist, is that when I pull the plug, it would be nice to have a valve on the, what do you call it, downpipe from our bath water that you can press from in the bathroom, this is, and it then takes the bath water into another water butt and seeps it out into the ground, or something along those lines. It takes it into a separate, that way if your water butt is full, you don't need that water, it can still go down the other the drain otherwise. I know what I'm saying, I'm just not explaining it very well. Jenny says, we don't have a bath, not an option here. Don't have a bath. I could not live in a house that didn't have a bath. I could live in a house that didn't have a shower, but I couldn't live in a house that didn't have a bath. I love my baths. Digwell says to Scott, what do you think happens to that at the treatment works? That's actually a good question. What does happen? I'm not going to ask it. I took Roxy for a walk last night. We went past the water treatment works, and I was actually wondering there how it all works. This is something, one of those things that I'm curious about and would like to find out more. So let's carry on. So who here, if you use bath water, how do you get your bath water out of the bath and into your garden? What do you use? Is it gravity or buckets? What I tend to do is I take my buckets, I put them in the bath, submerge them before I pull the plug. Then I pull the plug. I normally have a bath at night, I should say that. Pull the plug, and what little water isn't caught by the buckets goes down the drain. But my buckets are then full. I leave that overnight, and the next day I take those buckets of water out to the garden to use those. And that for me is proven to be a very simple way, but there's got to be a better way. Stuart says the technology is there for harvesting bath water for your garden. I have seen that on the house build show. It doesn't surprise me. We need it. Nigel says you can fit a diverter valve to a down pipe. That is exactly what I'm looking for. A nice sort of diverter valve, ideally remote controlled, so we can just turn that, push that button, and it will go. Roxy's down at my feet. Sorry, I was just looking at that. Nicholas says, I used to use a pump and hose pipe. So again, this is something that I could do. The trouble is I tend to have a bath quite late at night before I go to bed. So getting a pump out at 10 o'clock at night to pump it out into the garden could be a little wrong. Could be a little upsetting to my neighbours. But hose pump, a pump that I use for my water butts. For me, I use a hose lock or water butt pump. They're not very expensive, but I use that to pump water from my water butts and around. But I've also used it to build a system using rainwater for my veggie pods. It comes on every morning for about 10 minutes and just pumps water into my veggie pods, which works really, really well. I have to say, creates just a decent amount of pressure to force the veggie pods into use and use that sprinkler system that the veggie pod uses. So that for me is why I've used a pump on the rainwater butts, and it works very, very well. Nicholas says, did mine the next day when it had cooled down. Over on Instagram, Jamie's Little Allotment has joined. We're talking about rainwater harvesting, although we seem to be now talking about bath water harvesting. We'll get back to rainwater in just a moment. All about basically trying to reduce the amount of wastewater we have, I guess. Digwell says, leave the bath water in the bath until it gets cold. The latent heat then goes into the house and not the sewer, which is a good idea. Normally, by the time I get out of the bath, it's cold anyway, because I'm in the bath for a good hour and a half. I told you I love my baths. The other trouble I have when you leave your bath to go cold is all the sort of grease from your skin. It's not much, I know, but when you wash it off, it does tend to stick to the sides of the bathtub if you do it when the bath is cold, which makes the bath harder to clean, which gives Mrs. Amanda a bit more work to do. Jenny says we have Dunking troughs at the allotment. I've been given permission to pump from the water to my gate to fill my watering cans, which help me physically. I need a recommendation for a pump. Have you got electricity? Or are you looking at battery powered pump? That's a big question. On Instagram, Jamie's Little Allotment says, I haven't had a bath for 10 years. Have you had showers? That's the big question. Scott says, I try not to think about it. I don't drink tap water, especially not in Cambridge with the hard water. I didn't mind it back home in Yorkshire, but still tend not to drink tap water. I'm with you on that. I don't drink much tap water either, actually. It has to be boiled. It says, evening, Richard and all. Good evening to you. Then Stuart says, this could not come at a better time for me, as all my 4 water butts are empty. I had to fill one up from the tap today. Yeah, well, if it works, it works. Digwell says it will not be lower than 20 degrees, the temp of your house. You've not been in my house. My bathroom particularly can get very, very cold, partly because we turn the radiator off. We very rarely have our heating on anyway, but our house can get very, very cold. So it can easily be down at 10 degrees in winter. Battery pump places, Jenny. So for me, I would look at Ryobi, partly because I use Ryobi batteries in a lot of my garden stuff, and the ecosystem I've used of the same batteries work in so many tools works well. So if you are looking at battery power pump, Ryobi would be the way I would go, because of the fact that they do work with all these these batteries. Rob says, yay, we got a bit of rain. I still haven't yet. Idaho says, I made it. Hello, Idaho. How lovely to see you. We're talking about rainwater harvesting, something you might be able to tell us what you do. Turbo Stream says, the allotment had old baths for dunking connected to the water supply. I try not to use them as the water is metered. Oh, excellent. Nicholas says, a Bosch pump is good. There we go. Muddy Boots says to Scott, I tend to drink water, but it's usually blended with malt and hops. Absolutely. I had a feeling that was somebody texting me from the audience. I won't show you who it is. What he sent me is this picture of the rain. Oh, it's not very in focus, is it? I've got to come back here. Rainwater diverter kit. Does that work for bathtubs? And I guess that thing is there can you send me a link to that, Nigel? Can you send me a link to that? Because I'm interested. Scott says Bosch battery pump is very good. It's what I have. Another one for that. Digger says, I trust you buy it in glass bottles, talking about water. Plastic bottles introduce chemicals to the water, albeit in minute quantities. Thames water was voted the best tasting 5 years ago. Yeah, there's another vote for Ryobi over on Instagram. Jamie's Little Allotment says the Ryobi stick pump is good. That's exactly what I would be looking at as well. But yeah, we're trying to move away from plastic here. We're trying not to have plastic anything. Plastic can be a good substance, don't get me wrong, but bottles and things like that, we're trying to move away from plastic. My kind of tap water. What have we got? Digwa says apples in my water, fermented. Yep, same here. That's how I like my water. Connects to waste downpipe. Can you send me the link, Nigel? That would be really cool. Jenny says an alternative I did on my old garden to help save the rainwater within the soil was to make swales. They made a huge difference and reduced my need to water. Now, swales are a bit part of permaculture, as I understand it, and they're basically you're making ditches on contour. So I'm trying to explain this easily because it can get quite complicated. But the swale is basically a ditch on contour, so that when it rains, those ditches get full of rainwater, and because it's all level, it's on contour, all at the same height, it soaks into the ground instead of soaking away. Again, mulches and things like that also work at reducing it, but I've not ever made a swale, so I have to look into that at some point. I do not find it easy to make a swale when you understand the contours. Turbo Stream says, in this dry spell, I have hardly watered my allotment, just some spot watering on the cauliflowers. I think we use less water if we think about what we are watering. So here's the thing. I agree. I think we often try to water too many plants too often. We don't need to spend every week watering our plants. Or every day, sorry. We need to give our plants a really, really, really good drenching about once a week and get the roots to go down deeper from our plants to find more water. The deeper, the bigger and stronger the roots, the deeper they go, the better the plants are generally. The only thing is when we first plant out our new plants, when they are first planted, those roots are quite small. They have not quite found their way. So when we first plant out our plants, particularly our young seedlings, they do need a good amount of watering first to get established. Idaho says we only get 15 inches of precipitation per year. Most of that is winter snow. Do you try and dig up all the snow and put that into water butts or something so you've got it there for the summer, Idaho? Just thinking out loud. Jenny, please send me links for the pumps. Thank you. Will do. Rob says, I only buy Ryobi. I'm with you on that. And Jenny, I got mine on Amazon Prime. Turbo Stream says, e.g., I sowed a few things in my seed bed. I pre-watered the drill and sowed the seeds and covered over the seal to seal in the moisture. I have to see a photo of that Turbo Stream. That would be cool. Idaho says, my irrigation water comes from reservoirs and my household water from a 300-foot deep well. That's deep, isn't it? Deep. Jenny says, we filled our ditches with bark chippings. They were like a sponge. You got wet feet walking on it. Excuse me. You got wet feet walking on it in the middle of summer. Interesting. Bark chippings. Interesting. This is the swale, by the way, how she made swales. Digwa says, many water authorities give away water-saving gel crystals. I've got mine from Severn Trent, 100% natural before anyone asks. They also sell water butts quite cheap. If you need another water butt, contact or have a look on your local water authorities website and see what deals they have. Scott says that there was a good garden design at Chelsea last year. I think it had water storage underground. That is something I would love to do, actually. Perhaps. That's got me thinking, actually, because I'm looking at replacing the shed, and I spoke about this a lot last year. Didn't get around to doing it, but I've always fancied a underground water butt to try and maximise the amount of rainwater we have and rainwater harvesting. And now I'm just thinking perhaps we could do that when I take it down. Perhaps that could work. We get an underground water butt. That could definitely work. Digwell says, no need to water established plants if your finger knuckle comes out damp at the second knuckle. Absolutely. That's a good way of telling if you do need to water your plants, is that you dip your finger in the ground, and if it's damp up to your second knuckle, up to there, or me, I mean, it does depend because some people's hands are bigger than others. But yeah, if it's damp there, there's water under the ground. You've just got that layer, the top layer, that can be a bit dry. But a mulch helps with that. Let's not underestimate the value of mulching. Grass clippings, straw, compost, bark chippings, anything like that you can use as a mulch will really save the amount of watering that you have to do, and therefore make your plants much more, or your rainwater harvesting much more efficient as well. I'm a big fan of mulching. It's one of the top things. It also reduces weeds as well. One of the top things that I can recommend. Jenny says it was a great water garden, Scott. Very inspiring. Anybody going to Chelsea this year? I'm not. They don't allow me because I'm too much competition for the BBC. Nicholas says Facebook Marketplace good for water butts often. Yeah, another place. Check them out for cheap water butts. Facebook Marketplace. Facebook Marketplace is good if you want anything. Turbo Stream says, my plot is still damp after all the compost mulch I used in the winter. Top is drying out, but dig down, there is still plenty of moisture still. So here's a question. You've obviously applied the mulch in the winter, which nothing wrong with that. I try to apply my mulch now in the spring, or as a no digger, I do it in the spring, mainly because I'm sort of aware that the winter rain can wash out all those nutrients, and I want them to be there when the plants need them. So I'm doing mine more in the spring now, and that seems to work quite well, especially mulching as a mulch. Digwell says, also look at the recycling section of your local council website. Very cheap butts and compost bins. Absolutely. Talking of compost bins, I have started a trial this year, hot bin versus Dalek. You may have heard it on the podcast this week. 200-litre hot bin, 200-litre Dalek. We're filling them up with compost material at exactly the same rate. We're going to keep an eye on how much compost is produced from both bins and in comparison. If you've heard that on the podcast, I am actually running a competition that runs out on the 17th, on Thursday this week. If all you got to do, and you can win a pair of tickets to Gardeners World Live on Sunday, the 4th of May, down at Bewley. Pair of tickets normally cost about 52 quid. All you got to do is email me with what is the hot bin made of. What is the hot bin made of? If you are a supporting member, just tell me if you want to go, or you want your name in the tickets, and I'll see what I can do. Nigel says, scared to do the finger test. Too many cats around our allotment site. Fair point. But there's probably horse manure on your site as well. But I agree. I'm with you on that. Jenny says, there is a company that offers free water butts, but it's a postcode lottery. I'll just try and find the link. Anglian Water, I think I sometimes do it. Turbo Stream says, I've mulched an area with grass that the council dropped off. That is still wet underneath. It just goes to show the value of good mulch. Digwell says, too much competition for the BBC, or the BBC have standards? No, too much competition for the BBC is, what was it? The BBC has the broadcasting rights, and therefore didn't want me there. Jenny says, also, which is crazy because they invite me to Gardener's World. It's funny. Jenny says, also some water companies offer free or cheap water butts. Absolutely, they do. Jamie's Little Allotment says, if we're talking about competitions, I've got one running for a Stiga battery lawnmower and strimmer at the moment. So head on over to Jamie's Little Allotment Instagram if you want to find out more about that. Of course, wait till after the show. Wait till after the show. Scott says, I've noticed I nearly said something I shouldn't say there. I have noticed my no-dig beds are still damp, but the new beds that have only had one mulch are very dry. So what's probably going on there, Scott, and hopefully some people will jump in on this. Your older beds are established. They've got more organic matter added to it over the years. And that organic matter is acting as a sponge and holding on to the water. Your newer beds, it's not quite incorporated. There's not much organic matter in that soil. But it will come in time, and it will. It just takes time to build it up and what have you. Digwell says, obviously, the finger dampness, that does not work if you have gloves on. Well, your glove could be wet. Your glove could be wet. That could be a towel. But if you mulch now, that will seal in the dry. Charles Dowding says the compost doesn't leach the nutrients in the winter rain. It's a very difficult one for me. It's very difficult for me to scientifically prove, but we know that rain and water does leach and reduce the amount of certain chemicals, because that's why we add it to plant feed. So it's only reasonable to assume that it could leach out. I'm not a scientist in this sort of field. I'll be honest with you. My science is more physics based, but it is an interesting question. Does winter rain leach nutrients? Does it wash out nutrients, as we are told, as we are led to believe? You've got me questioning it now. When mulching, says Ian, I always water the ground first so that I lock in the moisture. Absolutely, yeah, I do the same. Water first, then mulch. Ideally, you want to mulch just after a rain cloud as well, because that's always good. Stuart says, with my soil clay, if it's wet today, it will be rock hard within a couple of weeks of dry weather. Yep, same as mine. And that's why we're having troubles with huge cracks in our grass areas from where it's been so dry these last few weeks. I've never been to Chelsea, only trade shows, says Ian. And Nigel says it's the RHS what control entry Chelsea and other shows. Yes, it is the RHS. The RHS said it's a good laugh. It's a good laugh. I have to dig out the email one day. It's basically BBC has broadcasting rights. That's the real reason. I just play it up a bit. Digwell says Elvis Costello and the attractions that I don't want to go to Chelsea. Nicholas says, come to Cornwall, always raining here. Indeed. Right. Let's quickly go to one of my videos. Let's go to this week's cook along. It's quite a long one. And last week you set me the cook along challenge to make doner kebab. And I think I've done it. Let's have a look. Okay, so for this week's recipe, you want me to make a homemade doner kebab. So I'm going to start off using this food processor. In goes, which I've roughly chopped, 1 onion. We always have red onions in this household, probably better with white onions, but my wife prefers the flavour of red onions. Also 4 garlic cloves have gone in there. We've then got 100 grams of breadcrumbs. So whenever we get leftover bread, we save the bread and turn it into breadcrumbs. Just our way of saving a bit of money. 500 grams of lamb mince. Best quality, of course. Then we need some paprika. I'm going to add quite a bit of paprika. Smoked, of course. Some oregano for other people, listeners. Coriander's going in. And then some ground cumin. I'm going to add a bit more herbs to that actually. Oh, might be a bit too much, but never mind. Let's add some more paprika just to balance that out. Okay, now the lid goes on. We'll pop that lid on as well. And all we've got to do now, blend. Okay, so we've prepared our meat. Now all we've got to do is prepare the cooking. So I've got some tin foil, which I have actually placed on top of a roasting tin to try and make things easier. Just going to pour around some olive oil just to stop it from sticking. Then we take our kebab meat. This is it. I'm just going to try and push it into a bit more of a sausage shape is what we're after. Try and make sure there's no cracks or anything either. There we go. So I think that is pretty much how we want it. Bring that over, and bring that over. Twist that like that. Twist that like that, and then this will go in the oven for about 25 minutes. Okay, well I just recorded getting this out of the oven and I realised I forgot to hit record. But it spent 40 minutes in the oven, we peeled it back, and this to me looks like a kebab's elephant foot that you'd expect in a kebab house. Now, we could of course put this under the grill just to add a bit more of that solid kebab look. First of all, I tried to use a potato peeler to try and get slices of kebab meat off, but it didn't quite work. But as you can see here, I've cut it off with a sharp knife, and here we have what looks to me like pretty good kebab meat. Let's just see if the potato slicer works. No, not working. So once again, it's back. Sharp knife. I did sharpen this in the first take, and I have to say this smells absolutely incredible, but to me that looks like chunks of kebab meat that you might get from a good old kebab takeaway. Let's do a taste test. So I've got this chunk here. That's bloody nice. I've made doner kebab before, but in a slow cooker, so this is slightly different to how I've made it before. That is bloody nice. Not quite the same as what you might expect in a kebab shop, but it's pretty darn close, and I would actually say this is probably better because it's not got that sort of dried texture you get with kebab meat, doner kebab meat. I'm going to give that a 9 out of 10. Indeed, a strong 9 out of 10 for our doner kebab. What do you think? Would that be something you would try yourselves? Did it look good to you, or is it something you would avoid? Back to the comments. So Chili Cake says farmers would tell you that nutrients are definitely washed out by heavy rains, and I've seen it firsthand following storms in Spain. I'm sure farmers would. I mean, I just come back to, I'm no scientist. I've just gone off by what people have told me on that matter. I'm pretty sure it would wash out, but I think with a no-dig methodology, it's less likely to wash out. So I would say. Toby Stream says nature doesn't wait till spring to shed its leaves, so I don't buy this rain washing nutrients away. I wonder if that has been a study into this. It does make you. That's a good point. But leaves rot down over winter and then go into the go into the soil. Don't know. Probably worse in traditional farming type soils, hence all the nitrates in the streams, etc. That's a good point. Nitrates getting washed into streams is, so it does happen. Yeah. Stuart says, looked great, Richard. Thank you. Digger says, I always ask him to fry off my kebab meat a bit. I like it firmer. I mean, I could have just stuck it under the grill to make it that sort of firmer texture, I guess, but I didn't. Scott says, this is making me hungry. Love kebab. Nicholas says, looked lovely. If you put a chopping board, could then cut easier, Richard, down to board. There was a chopping board underneath it. Just wait. Really, what you want to do is carve it, really sharp, long knife, like they do in a kebab house, and carve it off. I couldn't quite do that. Stream says, I watch Harry's farm. He uses chemical fertilizer to fix nitrogen that would leach out in winter rain. They should sow green manures and be much better. Again, I don't disagree with you. I do sow green manures over winter. They normally get killed off over winter, but I do sow green manures. I do think they are better for the soil. I do think they are less likely to allow the rain. But you have got me wondering, does winter rain genuinely wash out nutrients? I believe it would, but I also think with no-dig gardening, it's less likely to happen because the top layer, that mulch layer, is going to act as a sponge or act as a mulch and stop that rain from hitting the soil harder. Who knows? It's one that perhaps we need to find a soil expert to answer that question about. Somebody who studies soil science. That would be an interesting question. I can think of somebody who would be right up that street for that. Right. Anybody else got anything they want to add about rainwater harvesting? Anything special? Anything you want to add about rainwater harvesting? Obviously, I've included water buckets, my watering can to collect as much rainwater as possible. Every single shed, every single structure has a gutter, downpipe, and water butt attached. I can't think of anything else to add at the moment. I cannot think anything else at the moment. Digwell says they tend to feed the plants and not the soil, which is yeah, because that's the difference, isn't it? No dig gardening, you're feeding the soil, and the plants absorb the nutrients through the soil. When you're using the old traditional methods, you're feeding the plants, not the soil. That is a good point. That is a very, very good point. Nigel says, I manure my beds in autumn, then cover with plastic sheeting. The worms take it all down and the soil warms up quicker. Yep, absolutely. And that plastic sheeting stops the mentality that we're debating at the moment, whether rainwater does wash out the nutrients, but that plastic sheeting will stop it. So it does make me wonder. I can ask at my daughter's college, they teach soil science. Yeah, please do, Jenny. That would be interesting answer, actually. I'm just trying to think of somebody I know that studies soil science who might be worth getting on a podcast about this very question. But yeah, if you can ask at your daughter's college whether or not rain washes the nutrients that plants need out of the soil when it rains over winter would be a very, very good question. And is it enough to worry about? And again, I come back to the fact I do my mulching in the spring, so who knows? Digwell says, we mentioned last week, but don't forget that rainwater can be bad for seeds and seedlings. Yes, especially if it has been sat around for a while. Yes, stagnant rainwater can be bad for seeds and seedlings. Absolutely. I did mention that last week. Generally speaking, I use tap water for my seeds and seedling. Once they are strong enough, that's when I will start to use rainwater. The reason being is that there could be viruses or bacteria in rainwater that can kill off our young plants. Remember, young plants haven't got much of an immune system. They're not strong enough to take everything that is thrown at them. But on rainwater is, or treated water is more likely to have less bacteria in it. Is that correct? Is that the right way? I think that is an important point. Rainwater for your older plants, not your young plants. Turbo Stream says, I'm glad I didn't succumb to digging last winter. My soil is much better on my 5th year of laying mulch of every description on it. Absolutely fantastic. Good to hear. Because at one point, when Turbo Stream, at one point, weren't you talking about giving up on no digs? You thought it wasn't working, and now here you are. It has worked. You stuck with it, and it worked. Nigel says, I use fresh rainwater for seedlings, then tap water when they are established. Oh, fresh rainwater. Interesting way of doing it. Digwa says the fungus damping off disease. That's what you can get from rainwater as well. And Gary says, hi, should I be worried about using stored rainwater on salad leaves or herbs? Or will a wash before use remove any bugs that grow in the stored water? So I use rainwater on my salad leaves, on my herbs, and it's never done me any harm. So I don't think there's anything to worry about, but I do wash them out before eating, of course, in our tap water. So that's probably safe anyway. I'm not worried, but I'm going to ask everybody else. Should Gary be worried about using stored rainwater on his salad leaves? It's a good question, actually. I didn't think of that. Chili Kate says soil scientists are probably more likely to be taught in farming practices than home growing. Modern farming is really not how some of you portray. Yes, soil scientists are probably more from the farming background, but I know somebody, I won't call her a friend, I know her, who is more for a backyard gardener. So her science is probably more in home gardening and soil science in that. So I'll ask her. I'd wash everything anyway. Never know what has been on the leaves. Absolutely. Stuart says, I have seen water butts additives in a garden centre. Is this a good thing or is it better to leave alone? I've seen those water butt additives. Again, I've never used them. Never used them. But they can stop algae and they can stop certain bacteria and bad stuff building up. They're an option, not one that I would use, though. Turbo Streamer says, I was going to dig because the soil cracks in dry summers. If I only water the bits that need the watering, the plants, then does it matter if the rest cracks? No, it doesn't. It doesn't matter at all. That's what I do. My grass paths, my lawn cracks in the soil. And right now, I can probably fit my little finger in some of these cracks. They're so big. So am I worried by it? Not at all. Not at all. Actually, it'd be a good time to go get some lawn sand and put those in those cracks, thinking about it, and treat that. I was around a friend's house on Friday. We got out and done a few things, and we went back to his, and he was like, oh, do you mind just helping me put some holes in my lawn with a fork so that he can treat it? And I was like, yeah, of course. Got a couple of forks out. We put loads of holes in the garden, and then he was going to go get some compost and what have you, and lawn sand and seed, and treat that lawn. But now I'm thinking I could do that without the effort. Just wait for those cracks. It's got me thinking. Turbo Extreme says, let me start that again. I'm now mulching the bits I don't use on the allotment as I have too much space for the amount I grow. I'm now mulching the bits I don't use on the allotment as I have too much space for the amount I grow. So you're mulching the bits you don't use. Oh, so you put the mulch on when your beds are empty. Is that what you're saying? Until you fill them up? Or is it me? Am I struggling for some weird reason there? Or is there more going on? I don't know. Nigel says, the problem I can see with soil cracking is that water will usually run off and not penetrate the soil. Absolutely. as I said, I don't really care about my lawn too much because I'm more interested in growing veg. So it's not a huge problem for me. But if we fill those cracks up with compost, then there's some nutrients in the soil, aeration, lawn seed, etc., that would make it better for when the grass grows back. Digwet says water butt additives are natural products. Don't they use barley straw sometimes? Idea being just to extract some of that algae and what have you. I don't know. I've never used the stuff. I'm going to sneeze. I think. There we go. 3 sneezes. Excuse me. Yeah. What was I saying? I never used water butt additives myself. Probably never would. The only reason I might use them would be, what do you call it? If I was selling a water butt, then want it cleaned out. Nigel says Arsenal. What? Arsenal? What? Digwell and from rivulets and run away anyway. I'm confused. Not doesn't take me much. Tablet Stream says, LE, my allotment, i.e., my allotment is too big for the amount I need to grow, so I decided to mulch the bits I'm not using to save effort so I can concentrate the bits I am cultivating. With you now. That's a good idea, actually. That's a very good idea. If you got enough mulch, just mulch areas you're not using. That way it reduces the amount of work that you have to do as well. Stuart says, I put barley straw in the school pond. I didn't know you could use it in water butts. Thanks again. I'm only thinking out loud because I know you use it in ponds. And I'm pretty sure some people put barley straw in water butts for that same reason as well. But quite what it does, I don't know on that front. Why is it always 3 sneezes? A weird science. I don't know. And Stuart says, bless you. I don't think I normally do sneeze 3 times. I think it's just when I'm on live stream I seem to sneeze 3 times because that's always when I get an itchy nose as well, weirdly. Don't think I sneeze at work like that, but who knows? Who knows? Now, this week's mission, I'm afraid to say it is a failure. Last week you set me the mission to make a dig well dibber out of Lego, and unfortunately I haven't been able to get to a second-hand shop to find any Lego, so I did not manage to do this week's mission, I'm afraid to say. Shock, horror, I know, I'm sorry. What I'm going to do, of course, there was a mission mentioned earlier. We're going to have to do a double mission next week. And that means that I've got to find some Lego this week and make a dig well dibber, as well as the second mission, which I can't remember what it was, but it was suggested. And if everyone agrees to that mission, I can't remember what it was, or if anybody has another mission they would like me to do as well, let us know. Digwa says, before you sprayed us with snot, you were talking about cracked soil. The rain forms rivulets. What's rivulets? Tell us more. Tell us more on that word. Turbo Stream says, we are lucky the council drop leaves as this year the grass is so easy to apply a mulch for free. Yeah, if you are lucky enough to get those leaves, I would love them. We get wood chip, but not enough to really use. But yeah, leaves are a great mulch. Nigel says birdhouse. We did that mission last week. We used your mission for the birdhouse last week. So we've done that. You missed out on that one. You weren't here last week. I wonder if we can make a Lego birdhouse one year. Stuart says failed. Never mind. Good luck finding second-hand Lego. It's just heady Lego would have done, to be honest. Monday to Thursday, the shop's going to be. I work Monday to Thursday, so the shop's going to be shut. Friday, I was busy all day. Yesterday, I tried. I couldn't find any, but I will keep looking. Small rivers. Oh, rivulets. A rivulet is a small stream. I did not know that. I did not know that. I learned something new. So those cracks can make sense. Water always goes to removes the weaker stuff, doesn't it, and forms its own roots. So that would make a lot of sense. Digwell says the barley straw bacteria kills algae, but not the odors. Ask any pond keeper. Interesting. That's what it does. Turbo Stream says one of my squares is now completely covered in grass mulch. I will plant my squash if the seeds germinate. Or you could go for that. What do you call it? Shark fin melon, the thing that got so big and mulched out everything. Digwell says loads of Lego on Facebook Marketplace. Gary says started raining in Somerset. Still no rain here. Digwell says every day in which you learn something is not a wasted day. I totally agree with that. I always try and learn something every day. The day I stop learning is a day I would give up, no matter what it is. Love learning. I absolutely do love learning. New skills, new knowledge. I just love learning. Stuart says, put the Lego mission off until you visit our school. I will lend you the Lego. That's a few weeks away. I'll try and get the Lego. That's going to be half of the mission. Try and get the Lego. Make a water butt planter. I think that's what you said. Yes, make a water butt planter, Jenny. That was your mission. That was it. That's an idea for the second mission for next week. Turbo Stream says you could use a block of wood with screws sticking out in place of Lego if you don't have any Lego for a Dibwell Dibber challenge. The whole point, I got the impression, was to do the Digwell Dibber challenge, to make it out of Lego, just like Digwell has. Plus, I used to love playing around with Lego. And because my engineering sort of thing, my creativity when it comes to engineering at the moment has multiplied quite a lot with my new job. I'm starting to think about doing more modeling and things like that with Lego and making tools and things like that, using Lego, and ideally I want a 3D printer, because I can see it being quite fun. I can't afford a 3D printer at the moment, but I would like to do a lot more of that sort of thing. Digwell says that's breaking the copyright, doing a Digwell Dibber out of wood. That was my idea. I was thinking of doing it out of wood, but the Digwell Dibber needs to be Lego. And why not? And why not indeed? So are we happy with that? The Digwell Dibber for next week, as well as the water butt planter. And what do you want me to cook next week as well? We did the kebab this week, which I think worked very, very well. But we need something that has or uses a bit more of our garden produce. One thing I've got in the garden, I'm waiting to harvest, and it's going to be my last one, is my small single little cabbage. That might be something I could do something with. Stuart says that's why I love our group. We learn something every Sunday evening. Every day is a school day. I'm with you. We all do learn something. Always learning something every day. Nigel says use CAD, create solid model and 3D print. Indeed, that is the plan. Just got to get CAD software on my. Got to get a 3D printer. That's the real effort there. 3D printers aren't cheap. Turbo Stream says, Soz, didn't know you were a copywriter. Well, it's all protection. We've got to copyright all these things. Stuart says, I harvested Swiss chard this week. Could you cook with cabbage or chard? I actually do have Swiss chard as well, actually. I could do something like that. Oh, Jamie's allotment says, where do you live, Richard? I've got a 3D printer you can have. I'm in Littlehampton, West Sussex, which is probably miles and miles away from you. I don't know where you are off the top of my head. I have a vague recollection that you're somewhere. Everybody's somewhere. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I would love a 3D printer, is what I'm saying. Swiss chard recipe would be good. Okay. Jamie's little allotment. I'm in Norfolk. Am I in Norfolk anytime? I'm trying to think. I'm doing a week's tour in May. I don't think Norfolk. I might be going to Suffolk at some point this year. If I am, I'll let you know. That would be cool. That would be cool. Yeah, I could do a Swiss chard recipe. I could do a Swiss chard recipe next week. If anybody has a Swiss chard recipe that you would like me to do, that would be great. I live somewhere near nowhere, says Turbo Stream. Yeah. There's always something going on, isn't there? Team Ararat has joined over on Instagram. Lovely to see you there as well. Digwell says cheaper to use Lego. LOL. I mean, 3D printing is not cheap, is it? We've got a 3D printer at work. I'm not allowed to do my own stuff with it, unfortunately. But we've got a 3D printer at work, and in fact, my brother's got a 3D printer as well. He prints a few things. But I used to think that 3D printers were going to be the future for gardening, particularly because I thought what would happen in the future is that everybody would, as 3D printers get cheaper and cheaper, everybody would have one. And it'd be a case, you need a tool, you go and 3D print it, and there you go, you've got your tool. It hasn't quite gone that way because I think they're just so expensive, but there are ways of making it cheaper. Idaho says, lately, all I do is saute Swiss chard in a bit of olive oil, kind of what's something different, but not too complicated. Jenny says, I'm drowning in Swiss chard. So what can I do with Swiss chard? That I need your suggestions. Turbo Stream says, even cheaper to use a pencil. That's what I usually use. Actually, what I usually use to separate my plants is I always use my little white labels. I haven't got any to show you. My little white plastic labels. I always write down the seeds on that. I also use that for pricking out because it's there. It's just as good as a pencil, and it works. That's what I usually work. Although Digwell says heathen to Turbo Stream. Fair point. Right. Let's go to one of my rants. This is the part of the week where I have a bit of a moan, a grunt about something. And this week it was a struggle, but I came up with something. Okay, it's time for a Richard's rant. And this is a rant that I've avoided for quite a while, but I'm going to rant about it this week. The weather. Now, you're probably thinking there's hundreds of things that we can rant about when it comes to the weather. And we're always complaining about the weather, especially being British. But one of the things that I have found really, really annoying so far has been the weather. I know we can't control it. There's nothing we can do, but I'm going to have a good rant about it nonetheless. Right throughout the winter, I was complaining that it was too wet. We were getting too much rain and the ground was just solid. Kind of expect that over winter. But we thought that was going to sort itself out. And it did, because spring comes along, and it was quite a late spring, I felt, when it finally kicked in. But when it did kick in, we had a lot of sun. A lot of sun. It's been very, very warm. Rain was predicted this weekend. It hasn't happened. And, the soil's getting dry. But more importantly, we're getting this strong wind as well, which is just drying everything out, meaning I have to do a lot more watering. At this time of year, shouldn't be watering as much as we have been doing. Fingers crossed we're going to get some rain, but it would be good. I don't like the idea of controlling Mother Nature, controlling the rain, but it would be good if we had a good gallons and gallons of rain overnight to fill up our water pots, of course, related to the topic tonight, but also to water the garden, make sure everything gets a really, really good drink. So it is a bit of a rant, but there's a rant that we can't really do anything about this week. But what do you think on this? Would you like it if we could control the weather or rant about the weather? Indeed, it was a bit of a rant about the weather, one that I've had in my back pocket for quite a while. I've realised there's a couple more things that I need to rant about for next week. So hopefully next week's round will be a bit better. But I would just wish the weather would make its mind up at the moment. It's like we didn't get any snow. We just got a wet, horrible rain. Spring was cold and we didn't even get freezing weather. We barely got frost. And now spring is like a summer and it's dry and it's annoying. That's my point. That's my rant. That's my rant. Digwell says, use chard exactly as you would spinach. It doesn't quite wilt down in the same way as spinach, though, does it? But as I said, what recipe could I cook, or shall I just find something that uses Swiss chard? A lazy heathen on that Dibwell. Any photos? There are photos coming up in a few minutes, actually. Jenny says, I do love a Swiss chard wrap, either cold or hot, great with different colours. Interesting. Basic 3D printer about £170 upwards, filament about £20 a roll, plus electricity to run it is not cheap either, and they often run in for quite a few hours to produce anything. Scott says spanakopita, but with Swiss chard instead of spinach. Have I done spanakopita before? I think I have, but it's an idea. Turbo Stream says it's too, of course, don't forget you guys vote on what we want. It's too dry, too sunny, too hot, too wet, too cloudy, too cold, too windy. Exactly right. Exactly right there, Turbo Stream. It's too much of everything. And I'm just shaking my fist at the weather like that. I feel like somebody else there. Nothing we can do about it. Nothing we can do about it. Turbo Stream, back in my day, we had proper seasons. None of this modern rubbish. And we dug our soil, by gum. Indeed, back in the day, we did used to have proper winters. I remember the snow we had when I was a child. It was proper snow, proper frost as well, proper ice. Here, these days, as I said, we don't even get a frost. We don't even get a frost here that freezes and crisps. The old thing that gardeners would say is they dig over the soil, you'd take those large clumps of soil and you would let the frost basically freeze into those, and then that would fall apart easily. We're not getting the frost to break down that soil. Or not my experience anyway. Not my experience anyway. Stuart says, where have the seasons gone? Indeed. December 63. Oh, what a night. What happened in December 63? Or is that the song? Let me know. Ido says, if you could control the weather, then everyone would be mad at you. I wouldn't want to control the weather, in all honesty. I wouldn't want to control the weather. But if I was to ask for anything, I would ask for nice, sunny, hot weather during the day, rain at night. That would be the dream, but I wouldn't want to control the weather. I think Mother Nature knows what's best. Mother Nature knows what's best. That's something I'm going to just say there. But we do want proper weather. We do want seasons. Adrian's off. Early one there. December 63, the snowpacks on the footpath was 6 foot high. Wow. 6 foot high. That's as tall as me. That's a lot of snow. I mean, that was 19 years before I was born, so I don't remember it at all. But Turbo Stream says we had some good frost this last few weeks, even with this sunny wet weather of late. We've not had any frosts here at all. Stuart says 63 was a snow for December until March, if my memory is correct. Way before my time, I don't know. So I'm going to look it up later now. Remember to hit the thumbs up, everyone. Yeah, please do give us a like, a follow, subscribe, and don't forget to click the notifications so that you know when we go live. But yeah, back snow of 63. Snow of 63. I'm going to have to look that up and see the news reports. Digwell says, jump back in, been outside as I saw a black cloud. Did a rain dance, no good. You probably scared it off. You probably scared that rain cloud off. But Jenny says, Jenny says, did you film it? Did you film it? Look up 1963 winter on the internet. I will do. I'm interested. Digwell says, I have photos of that night, Nigel. The temperature did not get above freezing for 3 months. How old were you? Oh, that's a really rude question to ask. I was going to ask how old you were back then, but I'm getting, a really rude question. Teleray Stream says, I think this winter has been cold, certainly in Birmingham at least. It's had chilly moments. Not what I would call cold. We had a long period of chilliness where it wasn't hot like it should be. It was certainly, but it wasn't. It just didn't really get. For me, we just didn't get really frozen roads, frozen ice. We didn't get that. Or certainly not here in Littlehampton anyway. We did not get that freezing weather. I remember as a child where you would get black ice on the roads, and I cannot remember the last time we had black ice. I was 7 in 1963. Fantastic. 2009, 2010 was a decent winter too. The December to remember. What's that time? I have a vague recollection. Rob says, and the schools did not close with over 3 foot of snow. I was 6 in 63. Schools did not close. Absolutely. But people were less likely to sue if something went wrong then. Digwa says, I was 8. I'll pop a photo up in the group. Please do. I'm really intrigued by this now. You got me interested. 63. My dad delivered milk by tractor to villages around us. Left home at 6 a.m., returned at 6 p.m. Indeed. Remember my frosty leak photo I sent in a few weeks back? That was a decent frost. I do remember that, actually. You did get a decent frost there. I guess it's just not us here on the south coast. No, we didn't get it. And a rain dance video did well. We all need to do a rain dance video one week, don't we? We queued behind a janitor digging us into the school. Crikey. I wasn't even a twinkle in my dad's eye in 63. I think my mum was 1 year old. Yeah, 1 year old then. 1 year old. So even my mum was a youngster there. Right, let's have a look. Oh, hang on. I've just screwed this up. Let's have a look at your photos. So first of all, we're kicking off with some of the Ian Beddoes humour to kick things off with. Kale is so versatile, it literally fits into any size trash can. Some people love kale, some people hate kale. I'm quite fond of kale, I have to admit, but it's not for everyone. Now, Digwell straw bales are warming up, as you can see in this. I don't know what you would call this, but basically the air temperature is at 11.2 degrees C, but his straw bales are 30.2. Funny enough, this weekend, you'll hear on the podcast, because Digwell actually gets a mention as well, I have started my straw bale garden back up again this year. Excuse me. So we have started straw bale gardening again this year. The Stuart is preparing for rain. This is something we've been talking about today. All those buckets out to catch as much rain as possible. Even if it catches a small bit in every single bucket, put that all together, you get lots of rain water. Now, Chili Kate spent her birthday on the allotment. It's her birthday the other day, so happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kate. Happy birthday to you. That's the closest you ever get me to singing on this show, by the way. Happy birthday to Kate, and I've got to say, what a way to spend your birthday on the allotment. Chili Phil also, as a birthday gift, made this patio area on the allotment just for his lovely wife. I'm sure that was brownie points in there, made her very, very happy. Now, Charlotte has sent this photo of her plot, which is rather full. These look like broad beans, there's kale, there's a lot going on here. She is in Guernsey, so she is a little ahead of ourselves here, but there's a lot of photos that came in from Charlotte and look absolutely amazing, the amount of stuff she has growing there already. I was absolutely blown away with it. Now, please do keep sharing your photos. You can post them in our Facebook group, or you can send to me via social media, or you can email me, richard@veggroundpodcast.co.uk. That's richard@veggroundpodcast.co.uk. So please do keep sharing your photos. We absolutely do love seeing them here. Over on Instagram, Smooth Muscle Massage has joined. What have we got? Turbo Stream says, actually, Birmingham and probably the Black Country too get a fair bit of frost in winter these days. You're very lucky, though. Nigel says, I remember about minus 25C in January 1982. Well, here's the thing. I was born in April 1982. So obviously I don't remember it being that cold. But I know it snowed on the day I was born, which, as I said, that's April the 23rd, 1982. It snowed. And this is one of the key things I've always said. We don't plant our plants out early because there's still a chance we could get snow. It could snow in April. It snowed in June before, I believe. Rob says we had to dig ourselves in. And Stuart says, yes, my wife put out all the buckets, but still waiting for the rain. Aren't we all? Aren't we all? Anna says, great photos. Indeed. And Jenny says, great photos, everyone. Indeed, they were great photos all around. So we are into the last few minutes of this week's show. It's Easter weekend next weekend, isn't it? Which means we're going to have to do our annual Easter egg hunt. This is something we try and do every Easter Sunday when we go live. So I think what we're going to do next weekend, we've got an extra long weekend, which is going to give us a lot of time to do everything that we need to do on the allotment or in the garden. So what we're going to do next weekend, I want to find out what you have been doing on your allotment or your garden over that Easter weekend. Ideally, we want photos, we want videos, we want just a good sort of roundup of everything that you've managed to do over the Easter weekend next week. You've still, obviously, we go live on a Sunday. There's still been a Monday to go as well. So please do get that up. And in fact, I've just seen it's Nicola's birthday next Sunday as well. So another birthday going on there. Nigel's got to head off final round of the Master now. Good night, all. What's the Master? What's the Master? What's going on there? Let me know. This time last year, we had 1 centimetre of hail. Just goes to show, doesn't it? You can still get a cold snap. Stuart says the saying, don't shred a clout until May is out, i.e. keep your vest on, is very, very true. I've read that one. Right. Jenny says, I've taken Nate Richards. I'll pop them over later. Theme for next week, as I said, long weekend, Easter weekend projects. Easter weekend projects. I want to know your Easter weekend projects. Digwa says every weekend is a long weekend for me. Yeah. Stuart says, just to let you know, 324 this week at the plant sale. Thanks for the support, team. Every year, Stuart reports back how much he sold at the plant sale, which is money for charity, the Anne Jackson Brain Tumor Society, if I remember correctly. So good deal going on there. Golf, right? It's to do with golf. I think, re the Masters. Okay, thank you. Just goes to show how much I know about sports. Anyway, I think it is time to wrap this one up because it is just about 7:30. I think we've had a really good chat tonight. A really good chat about rainwater harvesting. Hopefully many more of you are going to go away and think about how much more rain you can catch and try and catch much more rain. It's going to pay off if we get a dry summer. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this one up and head on out of it. We will be back again next Sunday at 6. Where? Next Sunday at 6, we're going to be talking about your Easter weekend roundup, as Jenny has just said, what you've been doing over the Easter weekend. We're also going to be making a water butt planter and what else? Cooking something with chard. So all ready for next Sunday at 6 p.m. Look forward to seeing you there. Until then, please take care.